Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And I am here with yet another high demand coach, and that is the one and only Joey Drolshagen. He's carved his own path in the coaching world and has been there and done that when it comes to career transitions. Now he's created the SMT, or subconscious mindset training method, which is specifically designed to rewire the brainwaves and shift his client's subconscious conditioning, bringing it into direct alignment with what they desire so that they can attract the things that they desire to achieve. He now helps individuals break down the blocks that have been holding them hostage and align with their deepest desires to easily create lives of purpose and live with passion and fulfillment. Joey, there's so much I like about that, and I'm so excited to have you on to really unpack this, especially this idea of the subconscious and how that's playing a role and how to start unlocking it, right? Because it's kind of below the surface, behind the scenes for us. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to just hear your story, right? What is it that you were doing before jumping into coaching, and how did that ultimately lead you to make the leap?
Absolutely, Scott. And I'm excited to be here with you having this conversation. So, I started out, I grew up in a blue collar family outside of Detroit, Michigan. So it was around the automotive, mecca of the world with the big three and all that. And my conditioning that I grew up with was that a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some retirement. So even coming out of school moved me into that area and such. And I started working for suppliers of the big three, and then eventually GM, and then eventually went outside from there. And what got into sales, and something I did not ever want to do. But as I got into it and started enjoying that, that wins and things like that, I grew throughout my career, 28-year career, into sales and building huge territories, leading really good sales teams, leading really bad sales teams, eventually into a vice president, and then later on helping organizations that were in bankruptcy get back into profitability. And I was really good at what I did, which challenge that conditioning even more, that I was doing the right thing, but it's never what I wanted to do.
Wow.
When I was 23 years old, I had this insight that I wanted to spend my life inspiring, motivating, and leading people to live better lives. And at that time, I didn't even know how to do that for me. So I became a student of the works I do today at that time, and continued that throughout my whole life, my whole adult life, even while I was in corporate. And eventually the last company helping them get back into profitability, I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. And I already had multiple certifications in the coaching I do. I had some success with some individuals, and I literally stepped out, resigned from there, stepped out and moved to the mountains of South Carolina. And I've been going forward ever since. I've helped almost 1,000 business owners. When I say grow their business, I don't mean like 10, 15, 20%. I mean, going from like $34,000 a month revenue to $250,000 to $300,000, and doing that in a matter of months. Helping realtors go from 7.5 million in sales up to 23 million in sales, and again, in a matter of months. So I'm not talking about little incremental change. I'm talking about huge steps into that growth. And it just keeps working over and over again. I absolutely love it. I'm surprised myself at the results my clients have in applying this SMT
Wow.
method to their life.
Wow. I'm really excited to kind of dive into this. But one of the things that you mentioned here was this idea of becoming a student, right? At a young age, when a lot of us are still in college, maybe, but becoming a student of what it is that you knew that you were going to do, right? You started your entrepreneurial journey decades before you became what we would call an entrepreneur today. And I think that's a really, really instrumental piece to the success in your story. And it's one that a lot of people try and skip, right? A lot of folks will get at 23, I want to, this moment of clarity, right? This is what I'm made to do. This is what I want to do. And then we just jump, right? But we skip the step of being a student first. How is it that being a student for all those years helped serve you when you ultimately did make the leap?
Well, first off, it put me in a place of being the guinea pig for all the works I do today. Because I was the test pilot, I struggled financially regardless of how much income I had coming in. So as I worked through that and learned through that for myself, now I have that available to help other people. And one of the big things I bring to the coaching industry and helping businesses grow is I've experienced that other side. I've experienced the pitfalls. I've experienced the downside. I've experienced the struggles. I've experienced living by massive actions and exhaustive efforts and trading off my life trying to achieve something. I've done all of that. So now I can bring that to other people, and I know I can help them understand what the downside of that is and how you can easily get into alignment, much easier, get into alignment with what it is you're trying to create and keep some balance in your life while doing so.
Yeah, and it's almost surprising that you say this, but I actually couldn't agree more. But this idea that massive action isn't the ticket, right? That there's, especially in entrepreneurial circles, there's just this idea of just muscle through it, right? Go until until it breaks through, and keep doing it, keep doing it. What is the cost of all that massive action?
It's really the cost of our life. I mean, our most precious commodity is our time, and we never get to repeat a single day. And like early on in my 20s, I was married, and we had 5 pregnancies that, they lived to 24, 25 weeks and then be on equipment and pass. And out of those 5 pregnancies, I have 1 son. So when I tell you that I truly adore my child, that he's truly a gift in my life, I mean that. But because of my conditioning on his first birthday, I wasn't home celebrating his birth and his life. I was in Indiana building a sales territory because that's what I thought a man was supposed to do. And we don't ever get to repeat those, Scott, but we carry those pains with us the rest of our life. When I talk about that, I can feel that in my heart, that wow. Missing of that event. And we don't have to live that way.
Wow.
And what I love about what I love about my life is when I can share those pain points and help somebody else to avoid them. It was like there was a purpose in that. It has a bigger purpose than just me missing out on that day.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, and even in your bio and several times now, you've mentioned purpose, right? And it played such a big and pivotal role in yours. What do you say to the business owner out there who's like, I want to start a business, I want to do this thing, I want to grow it, but they're a little cloudy on what the purpose of all of that is. What would you say to them?
Yeah, one of the things that, and again, I've used this in organizations with, $100 million organizations with 400 and some employees and things like that were in bankruptcy, operating 3 days a month. I've used these same tools. I start out with every single person I work with helping them develop a dynamic vision. I have road mapping tools in my programs where we start with that. So we identify all of the areas of life of the kind of what we know as the whys, right? Why do you want to do it? But it identifies it not just in the money or not just in the business or even just a job, but in all areas of our life. So that why and that clarity of that vision is what we're starting to bring about. And then we step into bringing that about through the rest of the program. And in doing so, we bump up against that conditioning and those patterns that are holding us in limitation of what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
We shift those, change them out, and that opens up the gateway to start launching into the life that we desire with the business we desire and all of those whys and the purpose and the meaning and all that stuff coming into fruition as well.
Yeah. That's really remarkable. And I think one of the challenges that some people have as they're kind of stepping into this space is they're hearing these results that you've created, 10x growth results for clients. And then we start talking about subconscious mindset, and they're like, you've lost me. And so, because it can feel ooey gooey, it can feel a little squishy. So for, especially for the hard charging entrepreneur type. So for those out there who want the 10x growth, but are wondering like, how in the world could this actually create that? You're not talking about sales strategies. What would you say to them? What does that process look like?
Yeah. And honestly, like I can show results after results. I can show in my own life even. And when I went from that point of exhaustive efforts and putting 3,000 to 4,000 miles a week after week after week after week, running and gunning, trying to get more business and stuff, when I got into alignment. So if you look at this, the total mindset is our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And it's pretty much like if you picture an iceberg. The conscious mind we have control over, that's the above the surface part. Do you know 5% of the results of what we experience in our life come from the conscious mind? Comes from our logical thinking, our strategizing, our actions, our endless to-do lists and all that. 5% of our results comes from that. 95% of our results comes from that subconscious and what's in that conditioning and that programming and the beliefs and habits and all that. The other magic part of all this is I always call it the knowing doing. I learned that from, my mentor, Bob Proctor. The knowing part of what we want comes from the conscious mind. We know what we want. Somebody doesn't start a business without knowing what they want that outcome to look like. And doing the vision clarifies it, but they have an idea of what they want. Mm-hmm. But then they're taking all these actions that are not even in alignment with what they want. So they have a knowing doing gap in their life. And what happens is this within the subconscious, there's what I call a motherboard that triggers our brain waves to the actions we take and we don't take. So that means somebody that grows up that a man gets a job and supports a family will have such a hard time breaking away from that and taking the actions to lead to what they want. Or even the same thing with the massive actions, exhaustive efforts. And that's one of the things what I do that's not traditional to normal business coaching. Because it's all based on here's the plan. And now as a coach, I'm going to push you to do the parts that you have to do on that plan to get to where you want to get to. If you look at the people following those programs, less than 1% of those people ever achieve the same results the person teaching it has. Because there's a pathway that we have and it's unique to our conditioning. So when we start shifting that conditioning, all of a sudden that knowing doing gap starts closing. And the things we're doing are leading to what we know we want. And it starts happening with alignment. It's where we start, all of a sudden, things start happening out of the blue. Or ideas show up, or you overhear somebody at a coffee shop say something that answers exactly what you're looking for. Wow. But when we're doing the massive actions, we're not aware of that. We have to slow down enough to be aware of it. And that's really the magic in the whole thing. Somebody that wants to grow their business, like I talked about with, from $34,000 up to $300,000 a month revenue, that's a huge change. To think that we have to slow down in order to get that doesn't make common sense. It doesn't, right? It's not realistic. Yeah. And what I work with on my clients is you're not looking for realistic outcomes. You want a life that's unrealistic. Yeah. That's what we all want as entrepreneurs. We want to create something bigger than we could even imagine. That's not realistic, but we live through realistic conditioning in our actions.
Yeah. And so, and like you're saying, so much of that is under the surface, right? It's like the 90% of the iceberg under the surface. So how do we get to it, right? I think that it can feel tricky on the outset. You've got an approach to doing this. How do you help people kind of get below the surface?
And the SMT method is designed with every single person I work with to start with a dynamic vision. It's got road mapping tools to develop that vision. It covers all areas of our life. And then from there, we start moving into setting up, developing systems of accelerating habits, start taking actions into our fear and the things that don't feel good, and as we start taking these actions into it, we start bumping up against that conditioning that wants us not to take that action. In doing so, is we start identifying that subconscious conditioning that's not working, and then we can shift that conditioning. And once somebody starts getting different results based on shifting that, the shifting becomes really easy going forward. And so when I'm done working with a client, they walk away and they have their pathway, they have their beliefs, they have their subconscious conditioning, the programming all in place to lead toward that truly experiencing that entrepreneurial experience. And Scott, I'll go a little step deeper. Business growth, like I talked about the 34,000 up to 300,000, or realtors at 7.5 million in sales up to 23 million in sales, and doing so in a matter of months. It's unrealistic for that to happen. And in doing that, opening that doorway up, just imagine now any other area you go to in your life, that anybody, entrepreneur goes into in their life, how much easier it's going to be to do that.
Yeah. Wow. So the question that I have is, you're going through this, there's these like really transformational experiences that folks are having in a relatively short period of time. But the question I have is this something that we graduate from, right? Is it something that you can kind of lay to rest and move on? Or is this something that we're constantly kind of working toward and getting better and better at over time?
For me, I opened this pathway at 23. I'm a little bit older than that now, and I'm still continuing to grow. I'm still a student of this. And once I opened up that door, and the exciting part about it is we go to universities and we get these degrees and we do things like that and stuff. And we can't wait till the day we get done, where this is a continuum of the next level, next level, next level. Because ultimately what I do, I use business growth as a vehicle, like incredible business growth as a vehicle. But everything I do is really, you named it a second ago, it's personal transformation.
Yeah.
So think about as we start transforming, as we start opening things up, as it starts becoming easier. Is that something you'd want to stop learning about and growing into?
Definitely not.
I haven't in over 3 decades now and still
That's
going
awesome.
strong. So once we open it, now one of the other things I'll tell you is I will only work with clients for a certain length of time because I don't want people to be dependent on me because it's not about me. I have the avenue and I had the willingness to change my own life that drove to developing the SMT method and all that. But I want to help people to really get in there and create that change, make those shifts, experience what they want to experience, and then move on from there.
Yeah.
I'm not a lifelong coach for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so how is it that someone knows that they're ready for something like this? I mean, what are some signs that would be showing up in their life that it's like it's the right time to approach the SMT method or something like it?
Great question. And all of it starts with having an open mind. Somebody that I tell people all the time, if somebody knows everything about everything, you can't tell them anything else. It will not penetrate. So an open mind. But if somebody's got a business and you've been trying to grow the business and you're living up here, we talked about 5%. 5% of our results come from the conscious mind in our strategizing and all that. If you're living that way and you're not getting the growth that you really truly desire, then there's another avenue. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're struggling in that place, if you find you're missing events and time with your family and everything else, and you don't want to live that way, then there's another avenue to check out.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be for you, maybe it won't, but it's another avenue that you can check out and
Sure.
see if it is for you, if it will align and bring about those results.
Yeah. Excellent advice. I've got a question for you. I like to ask all my guests this, and it is, what is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing that you wish everybody listening or watching today knew?
I think it would be that it's not as hard as you think. Once I understood this stuff, it wasn't near as hard as what I thought it was supposed to be. Things really can come about easy, but we have to do our part to open that up for that to happen. And the other part of that is it's never this or that. We don't have to have a family or a business. We don't have to have balanced time or, the intention is that we have both.
Yeah. And what would you say, just kind of as a final exclamation point on that, what would you say to the person who's really, again, has that conditioning or just been fighting it so long that they're having trouble seeing that as being a reality? What would you say to that person?
Ask me that again, Scott, that they're having
if someone's really stuck in like, I have to pick one or the other, right? Like it's just not possible to achieve both. What would you say to them?
I would tell them to get a hold of me and let's have a 10-minute conversation because it's our conditioning that it's our beliefs that determine our life. So think about it. If you're thinking, I can't do this and this, I really want both, but I can't do this and this, you'll never achieve this and this. You'll never get to experience that. Yeah. And what happens is so many people have these incredible desires for their life, but they live so mediocre on the level that they experience in it because of those beliefs.
Yeah. Wow. So what I'd like to do, just kind of tag on to that, I'm going to have you take off your coach hat for a second and put on your CEO hat, if you will, and jump into the ring with the rest of us and tell us a little bit about what the next stage of growth looks like for you as a leader and for your organization and what challenges you'll have to overcome to get there.
So part of my plan, I think I knew this once I started getting certified and stuff like that. I truly want to inspire and motivate millions of people with my life works, which is unrealistic. This kid from Detroit, right, growing up in a blue collar struggling family, but that is my goal. Is I want to inspire and motivate and lead millions of people to living better lives. And one of the ways I'm doing that is through my coaching, speaking, all the stuff I do now. But I'm also getting ready. I have another corporation called Life Ignited Institute, where I'm going to certify other coaches in my programs in the SMT method, so I can expand the footprint that way there. And that's the next step. And we're building funding right now because I don't want to chintz it in launching it. I want to do it the right way. So we're actually building up the funding and building up the team and all of that to do that right now. And it's a little ways out there, but that's my next big step.
That's fantastic. Exciting times, exciting times.
So excited.
So someone sitting there listening and they're like, yes, this is me. I'm ready. I need help. How can they find out more about the work you do and get in contact with you?
So I think you got my website on here, and anybody can go there and schedule a session with me. The other area I'll give them is anybody can go to coachwithjoey.com and schedule a 10-minute call with me. And if, like you had used the example, if somebody feels like it's not possible, schedule a call. If you resonate with something in this, schedule a call. If you think this is all BS, schedule a call and let's talk about that. Because all it will do, the conversation, all it does is sparks the next level of whatever it is to get there.
Yeah.
So reach out. I love having these conversations, Scott. Go to coachwithjoey.com, schedule a call. We'll get on the phone. We'll talk about it.
Remarkable. I love that. I love that. So across the table, if you think it, I love it. If it's BS, try it out, so because what's it going to hurt? Well, Joey, just an honor having you on the show. It was fascinating conversation. And, it's clearly on to something that's working really well right now. And I'm excited to be able to share that with everyone. And for those of you listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this episode as I know I really did. And I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. And God bless everyone.